All right, so let's keep moving down to the bottom half of the South. Another Mountain West team now. UNLV against Colorado. Basically got in because they won the Pac-12 tournament. The Pac-12 was I don't think you can even call it a Power 6 conference this year. Cal got in with the play-in game. Colorado won, which probably should have been Washington. But as weak as the Pac-12 was, I think, once again, the Mountain West had those teams that started off hot, but all kind of fizzled out. I have Colorado in this game.
I do not. I have UNLV, and I have UNLV considerably. They've only lost 8 times all season, and the Mountain West, compared to the Pac-12, the Mountain West, I'd say, is a better conference this year. I think that if you had to choose the 6th power conference, it would be the Mountain West this year. They have less losses in a better league. They have won big games. They beat UNC all the way back in November. Sure, it's the beginning of the season. Sure, it was in Las Vegas tournament. But Mike Mosier is a big guy down low. He's hard to defend. Puts up about 17 points and 8 rebounds roughly a game. I think that UNLV is a team that is that mid-major team that can make the run in this tournament.
Tim?
I have UNLV, but it's really because Colorado plays in the Pac-12, and I didn't think they played.
They haven't been tested all year.
Really, even in the conference tournament, I didn't think they were tested. And UNLV advancing after that, I don't have advancing after that either, because looking at the second half of their schedule, they've really you just see all losses on the first side. If you would have asked me maybe at the new year, they probably would have. I would have said they would have gone further, maybe even had a higher seed than a 6, but at this point, now just one win for me.
And Max is laughing right now.
I got to make a comment here. I guess
you guys convinced me. I think you guys convinced me. I just crossed off Colorado. It's all tentative to Wednesday night. It's all tentative to Wednesday night. And, hey, just because other people benefit from our show doesn't mean I can't.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
All right, so we keep moving down. Now, the winner of that game, Baylor, and we go from two of the weakest conferences to maybe one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the Big 12, Baylor and South Dakota State. Now, my friend Jordan, I told him I'd say this so it's on record. He has South Dakota State over Baylor.
No.
Any chance?
Not a chance. No chance whatsoever. They got the same exact record at 27-7, but Baylor is the more experienced team. Sure, they got off to that great start, probably about 18-0, I think they were. They've skidded since, but they've been playing tough teams since. They beat Kansas in the Big 12 tournament, something that nobody seems to be able to do over the past decade or so. They beat Kansas. Sure, they had a tough one against Missouri, came out on the losing end of that, but Baylor's another team that is real good, and they're sort of lurking there. They've went from a top 5 team, someone in the national spotlight every single day being talked about on ESPN, to a team that's sort of fallen off a little bit, and nobody's really talked about them. Those are the dangerous teams. That's UConn last year. That is the team that slips in with the 3 seed nobody really thinks about. But could they be a snarky little guy in there and make a couple moves? I think so. I think that they will lose to UNLV second round, though.
Tim?
Out of all the 3 seeds, I think they're the best 3 seed out there. And they have a lot of quality wins. I mean, Kansas led in the conference tournament. That was really a statement win. And I have them going all the way to Elite 8 against Kentucky.
I have them going to the Final Four. I mean, I think they'll beat Duke, and between them and Indiana, I've said Indiana has the experience, but I think Baylor does too. And I've loved Perry Jones this year. I think he's been outstanding for them. And really, they're Brittany Griner away from being national champion, I got to say.
If only she could play in the men's league.
If only. All right, so we keep moving down. And this is an intriguing matchup right here, this next one, I think. 7 Notre Dame against 10 Xavier. I think these 2 seeds could easily be switched. I think Notre Dame gets as high as the 7 because they're the only team in the regular season to beat Syracuse.
Yep.
Xavier also played a solid season, but they had some tough losses. That moves them down. But this, I think, will be a very close game. I have this as one of my big games to watch. Max, who do you have in this game?
See, these games I can't even stand. I can't stand any of the 7-10 matchups across the board. Who do I take in this game? I'm going to go with Xavier. Whoever wins it's going to lose to Duke in the second round, so it doesn't really matter to me. But I think Notre Dame's been overrated all season. I don't think that they have that inside presence they need. Sure, they got some guys down there. They got Jack Cooley, who made Syracuse look silly when they played, but there was no Fab Melo. There was no one to guard him. Right. I just think that Notre Dame's a little bit overrated. I think Xavier showed a lot by losing to St. Bonaventure in the A-10 tournament. I think neither team really has a run in them. I'll say Xavier just because I think Tu Holloway is a great player, preseason All-American. Didn't have the best season, but he's still probably the best player in this game.
This is, of course, one of those games in your bracket. You know they're probably going to lose to Duke. Neither of these teams is that strong.
Yep.
I'm going with Notre Dame. I'm going with the safe pick. I'm going with the higher seed just to try to get that extra point in the standings.
Yeah, I have the same. I have Notre Dame, mostly because I saw Xavier lose to St. Bonaventure. But This matchup to me is not as exciting as like an Iowa State UConn matchup that's really close in the seeding. These two teams, like you said, I think definitely going to lose to Duke in the third round.
All right, so we keep moving down to Duke now. Any chance Lehigh wins this game? Let's just say it like that.
You know, we talked about Duke before we even got to them, not even giving Lehigh a chance. I don't think they have a chance. C.J. McCulloch's a great player for Lehigh. He's one of the top scoring leaders in the country. But the thing about Duke is they don't just have that one player who can score. They spread it around with all their guard play. They got the Plumlees inside. They're just too good a team. But one thing I will bring up, Ryan Kelly, the star forward on that team who can shoot the three, can dunk, can do everything, the versatile player, is day-to-day. If he is not back against Lehigh and they let McCulloch get on a little run that game, that could be the 15-2 matchup, 15-2 upset that we've been waiting for so long. Hasn't happened in a while. It's been close.
The last one, 2001, Hampton. And all-time, the 2 versus the 15, out of 108 times, the 15 seed has only been able to win 4. Tim, what do you make of this Duke team?
Duke, I have them losing to Baylor after, like I said, I don't think Xavier or Notre Dame would pose any threat in the third round. But in the Sweet 16, I like Baylor over Duke. Duke has been really the loss to North Carolina late in the season that has turned me off.
At home by 20 points on senior night. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't think you can just let that one
So, who are your last 2 teams out of the South?
You see, I have UNLV going down and beating Duke. I have UNLV and Kentucky playing in what will be a great game of 2 powerhouses from 30 years ago. It'll be a great game. It'll be a great game.
All right, Tim?
Kentucky, I said earlier, is in my Final Four. Have them over Baylor, mostly because, I don't know, really more of a gut feeling on this one because Baylor has a lot of, you can say a lot of good things about them, but Kentucky all season more consistent.
And I have Indiana Baylor. Like I said, I think Indiana has what it takes to beat Kentucky, and I love Perry Jones from Baylor. I think he can do it all. And I think it's just worth saying before we go any further, I'm not going to Missouri, but I got into Missouri. These 2 guys are going to Syracuse. So there may be a little bit of bias for me towards the Big 12. They're obviously going to have some Syracuse stuff to say. Just think we should throw that out. But regardless, I think Baylor's a good team. I do think Kentucky's the best team in there, but I just do not like the way they match up with Indiana at all. And the same thing, I think Duke, well, they may be a better more talented team than Baylor. I don't like the matchups when you take it player by player. Coach, not coach on coach. I love Mike Krzyzewski. I think Krzyzewski's arguably the best coach in basketball.
I don't even think it's arguable at this point. I think he is, period.
The player on player match. I mean, but there's only so much you could do. Even if he has high schools out there,
he can't throw on the jersey and hit the 3.
Right. Not since his days at Army. I like Baylor in that one. Who do you have? So I have Baylor going to the Final Four out of the South. Who do you have?
I have Kentucky, but I think how the schedule that works out for Kentucky with a second or third round, however you say it, if you include the playing games, I think that's silly. I'm saying second round matchup with UConn, third round matchup with Indiana, then they have to play UNLV. They are going to be dead by the time that if they reach New Orleans, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough thing for them to do, to keep playing like that after game that I think is going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, Kentucky. I have them over Baylor. So.
I have Baylor. All right, so we can. So we'll say the YBA consensus is Kentucky. It's 2-1. I have Baylor in case you want to go with me. But so right now on the YBA bracket, I'll just fill this in. We'll see what our Final Four is going to be. Kentucky. All right, and we move over to the right to the hometown bracket in the East. And I do not only call it the hometown bracket because it's in Boston, but I call it the hometown bracket because I got 2 Syracuse guys, one sitting on each side of me. Syracuse, the 1 seed against UNC Asheville. Guys, break down the Syracuse team for me a little bit.
See, this Syracuse team is no question the deepest team in this tournament, or at least the deepest team that can make a run. They're no question one of the most talented teams. The 2-3 zone is unstoppable, as you see on the highlights here. They know how to get it done. They have so many players who can make the play. They're big down low with C.J. Fair, with Fab Melo. They spread it out with Josephs, with Brandon Trish, with Dion Waiters, who I think is the dark horse player on this team. I think he's that guy coming off the bench who's really going to have to step up if they want to make a Final Four championship run. But I really think, and I know that there's some bias. You mentioned I'm going to Syracuse. My brother's at Syracuse. I love the team. But I try to balance my head and my heart. And I really do think that Syracuse is a good enough team to make a Final Four in a championship run.
You mentioned Dion Waiters. I think he proved a lot about himself, and he's one of those players that's now going to be on my radar throughout the tournament because of that game against Cincinnati, even though they lost. 27 points, and he was trying as hard as he could. He was making free throws when he needed to miss them.
Yep.
Is how hard he was trying. He's a guy who's going to be on my radar. Tim, what do you think of Syracuse? Oh, we got a caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Hello.
If you could turn up the sound of the studio a little bit so we can hear them. But I think I know who this is. Is this Bradley in Florida by any chance?
I think it is.
All right, Bradley in Florida. What's going on? Okay, Bradley, so we're breaking down the East right now, but anywhere on the bracket, if you have any questions for us or comments, as you do yours.
Yeah. How far do you think Marquette is going to go?
How far do we think Marquette's going to go? I'll let Max grab this one first.
You took mine way before I was ready to talk about it, but Marquette, they are, in my opinion, one of the most interesting teams in this tournament, the 3 seed. Personally, if Iona is able to pull off the win over BYU tomorrow night, I have Iona, the Iona Gales, taking over Marquette, and probably the biggest upset that I've ever had in all my years of doing a bracket, a 14 over a 3. Iona, they have so many players. They're led by seniors. Scott Machado, 14 points and 10 assists. He leads the country in assists. I just think that they're too good a team, and they have way too much going for them. They're getting all the dispute about should it have been them or Drexel. I really think Iona's the better team. They have the better strength of schedule, the better RPI, the better non-conference play. I think Iona is able to take over Marquette. If BYU pulls off the win over Iona, though, I'd go with Marquette in that one.
I have Marquette in the first round, but I have them losing to Murray State.
I have them in the Sweet 16, but I'm really not confident about that one. You know, losing to Cincinnati and Louisville late in the season, and Louisville in the conference tournament really lowers their stock, in my opinion. But I don't see any other threats in that could take off Marquette.
All right, Bradley, what else you got for us?
Two more things. Do you see Michigan State being one of the teams in the Final Four?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you see Michigan State being one of the teams in the Final Four?
Michigan State in the Final Four? I don't know. They got a hard bracket. They have Missouri, who's a good team. Louisville, I think, is a very good team. Murray State, we don't really know with them. I mean, they played well, but they didn't have any big games. I think they're the weakest 1 seed. I have them out. I have them losing to Louisville in the Sweet 16.
You know, the tournament committee agrees with you that they're the weakest 1 seed. You're in that 4th 1 seed. I personally have University of New Mexico beating Long Beach State, which I think will be a tough game in the first round, then beating Louisville, then playing a tough game against Michigan State, and actually pulling off the upset. I think the Lobos are they're coming off a championship. They know how to win. I think Michigan State's a great team, but I think if you can shut down Draymond Green, which New Mexico could do, Michigan State is a much less scary team. So I actually have New Mexico knocking them off in the Sweet 16.
And you got to remember, Draymond Green got hurt at the end of the game against Ohio State, so we don't know if he's going to be 100%. Tim?
Yeah, I was going to talk about him a little later, but Tom Izzo, I definitely like him. He's every year it seems like the Michigan State's going to go far. I'll talk about them when we get to the West, but no, I have them in my Final Four. I actually have them as my national champion, so I'm definitely up on Michigan State. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so there you go, Bradley. You got one national champion. All right, Bradley. Said you have one more thing for us?
Yeah. Who do you think is a stronger all-around team? Syracuse, or who's that number 1 in the Midwest?
Syracuse or North Carolina?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Syracuse.
All-around stronger team.
Syracuse, North Carolina is the 1 seed in the Midwest. I'm going to say Syracuse.
Depends what you're looking for. I think North Carolina is the more talented team when you look at raw talent. Their front line, you have Harrison Barnes, who's going to be a great NBA player. And then you have Zeller and Henson, who's day-to-day, but I think John Henson will be able to go with his hurt wrist, and I think he'll be about 100% by the time that they need him in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think UNC is arguably, as I said before, with Kentucky, they're the 2 most talented teams, raw talent, when you look at their starting lineup. But I think Cuse's 2-3 zone will smother the inside presence of North Carolina, and I think that North Carolina is going to have to hit threes to beat Syracuse. Don't think they'll be able to do it in that Final Four matchup.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Bradley, for calling in. Great questions. Great to have you on the show. All right, so we continue moving on.